Hey YouTube, I just finished recording the rest of this video, so I'm actually going back and recording this to start because I wanted to first talk about some of the tips that I have for the application cycle in itself, and then I was going to go over all the individual parts of the AADSAS application. So I have my laptop right here, and I'm going to be reading some of the tips that I have for the application cycle in itself. I think I mentioned this later on in the video, but thank you, Emily, for messaging me, contacting me on Instagram, and asking about these things. This video is kind of dedicated to you, but also just those who are applying the cycle and wanted to know what the application cycle was like and what to prepare for. One of the first comments that I have is that start thinking about your letters of recommendation and who you want to ask. I would ask a couple months in advance for the letters of recommendation so that it gives them time to write it. A lot of professors, they tend to be really busy during the semester or the quarter, and so it takes them a while to write this. Also, if you are asking for letters of recommendation, make sure to ask for strong letters of recommendation. Use the word strong. And if there's any hesitancy about them writing you the letter of recommendation, I would seek a letter of recommendation from someone else. I also would recommend getting a letter of recommendation from someone that you know or that knows you a little bit more personally, so that the letter of recommendation that you will receive will not be generic. The dental committee gets so many applications every year, and so the more that you can show yourself as a person, the better it will be to stand out. So there's a soft opening where the application opens and you will be able to submit your materials before you actually submit your application. So this is where you can actually submit your letters of recommendation, your transcripts, because it takes time for those to get in and actually show up on your application. I would highly recommend using Interfolio because what Interfolio will do is check the grammar, check that to make sure your letters of recommendation have their dates and they're signed and everything. AADSAS will not do this, as far as I heard. They won't check these things on your application. So I would recommend using Interfolio because it will alert you if there's anything wrong with the actual letters of rec themselves before you submit them in AADSAS. I have heard, I'm not sure how true this is, but I've heard that you can get turned down for your application because your letters of recommendation are not correct and they don't meet the requirements. So I would highly recommend just using Interfolio and collecting your letters of recommendation before so that you're not stressed out when the application cycle rolls in. So I would ask for letters of recommendation a couple months before the application opens up in May. So start thinking about it in February or March. About asking for letters of recommendation, and then having the letters of recommendation sent into Interfolio maybe like a week or two before the application officially opens up in May. You can also put that it's due in May or like when the actual soft opening is opened, but definitely do it before June, because I put on my application that, or I put in one of the letters of recommendation that I sent out that it was due on June 1st, and they submitted it June 1st to me, and it took a couple days to process, for Interfolio to process the letter of recommendations to check to make sure all of the requirements were correct and were fulfilled. And then when I got that letter of rec, they were missing a signature. So then I had to wait for them to resubmit it and then wait for Interfolio to check again before I could submit it into my actual application and then submit my application on AADSAS. So definitely give yourself time to get the letters of recommendation in and wait for Interfolio to actually go and check them and then give you the okay that they're good to submit for AADSAS. The second thing that I would say is to start working on your personal statement ASAP. You will go over so many revisions of your personal statement, and I would definitely get started on it sooner or later. I think I rewrote mine like 20 to 25 times. Another comment on that aspect is Grammarly is great for all of the portions of your application. Anything that you have to write something for your application, my dad actually got Grammarly for me to help write my personal statement. It helped a lot with going over, like, once I finished my once I finished my personal statement or any of the prompts that I wrote out for, it helped to submit or put them through Grammarly to make sure that all my grammar was correct. It just was a nice peace of mind to know that all of my grammar was correct. And make sure to get plenty of quality people to read your personal statement, because and definitely think about quality over quantity, because you can ask too many people to read your statement and you will not be able to satisfy everybody. At the end of the day, your personal statement should be a reflection of you, and you should be happy about what you're submitting because you feel like it reflects you, not because the dental school wants to see what you wrote, not because you're trying to appease everybody that helped you with your application. Like, you need to be satisfied with your personal statement when you submit it. You know, even though I thought my personal statement might have been perfect before, there was just still so many things that I needed to like redo, and I needed to put my pride aside and look at my my personal statement through their eyes and see. And once I did that, I noticed that there were so many things that needed to change. And so I would definitely get people to look over your personal statement. The third thing is I would get your transcripts early as possible. What I mean by that is the application will have a soft opening, and then you will be able to submit your you'll be able to submit your transcripts in once the soft opening opens up. And I would do that as soon as the application opens, because there will be such an influx of people trying to get transcripts from their school in around that time. So the earlier in the application you can, the better. Okay, it will also provide enough time to submit your transcripts in the application in AADSAS, because once the transcripts are sent in, it will take a while for the transcripts to actually get in to AADSAS. So like with the influx of people and everything, like I would just get that submitted as soon as possible. Yeah. Also, I should make a separate video for the DAT, but if you're watching this and you haven't taken the DAT or are thinking about taking the DAT and wondering, like trying to set up a timeline on when you should apply and when you should take the DAT, like I would recommend to take the DAT like the year before you apply if possible. I wouldn't recommend taking the DAT after you apply because it's just going to put a lot of stress on you. But of course, that's not to say that you can't do that, because a lot of people do and it works out fine for them. This is just my recommendations on trying to get put yourself in the best situation to apply. So I definitely would give yourself time to retake the DAT if necessary, like plan for worst case scenario. Like, you want to do your best the first time, but you also want to be prepared in case that doesn't happen. So definitely just keep that in mind. You have, like, after you take the TAT, I think you have like 3 months before you can actually take it again. So, if you're trying to take it in the middle of the cycle or right before the cycle, then you might be pushed for time. And if you take it before the application cycle opens, then it will give it enough time for your official DAT score to show up on AADSAS. So anyway, I'll get started on showing you guys the application. I'm going to try to post like a screen recording right here of the application I'm gonna try to screen record it on my iPhone and then post a recording right here that will show what my application for AADSAS looked like last year, because I know that when I was looking for like a walkthrough of the AADSAS, I couldn't really find too many that actually showed the screen. I had a couple that was provided from my pre-dental society that were very helpful. I figured that having a walkthrough of the application would be pretty helpful, but also like a couple of the tips that I would have on putting your best foot forward when applying to dental school. My stats are pretty low, so I wanted to be able to apply like as soon as possible, and I wanted to apply like on June 1st, because that's when it opened up last year, because dental schools are rolling admissions, so the sooner that you get your application in, the sooner that dental schools will actually see your application. So this is what the AADSAS page looks like when you're logging in. I think you can make an account already. You can't access any of the application features until it opens up this year, and I believe that will be in May. Let me check. Yeah. So it says the 2022-2023 application cycle will open mid-May. So for me, in 2021, it opened up May 15th, and then I tried to submit my application the first week of June. I tried to submit it the first day of June, but because that's when the application was actually due, or that's when you could start submitting applications. But I had a couple issues with my letters of rec, so I wasn't able to submit them, or to actually submit my application until around a weekend, I think, until June. But either way, it was like within the first week or two of June. So once you create an account, you can log in, and this will be seen, or you will be able to see this as soon as the application opens up in May. I don't think you'll be able to have access to it until that it opens. But once you open up the application, you'll have 4 sections to complete. So you'll have the personal information section, the academic history, supporting information, and then program materials. So in the personal information section, so the first section will be a release statement that will release all of your information, with all of the information that you provide them. It's just a release statement, just like terms and conditions that you have to sign. You can read it, and yeah. Okay, so the second one is biographic information, and this will be like your name, if you have any other names, gender identity, birth information, and then contact information is self-explanatory, but it'll have your current address, and then you have an option to put for your permanent address. For me, those two are different since I'm living in an apartment and I'm going to be moving soon. And even when I was an undergrad, it was the same way. You have a chance to update this because I actually moved in the middle of this cycle, so I had to go back and update this at a later time. But that was after I submitted my application. Citizenship information. It asks if I have dual citizenship, Canadian citizenship details for those who are submitting, for those who are Canadian residents that are submitting apps through AADSAS. And then environmental factors was interesting. So this is part of the application where if you have if you want to start preparing statements for these, I would start. There is a disadvantage consideration. So should you be considered a disadvantaged applicant? refer to social, economic, educational factors when making a determination. They have a link for the criteria. Let me open this, and I'll probably open it on here. And then they have a couple, they have some information on what qualifies you as having a disadvantaged background. So you can put up to 4,500 characters for a statement providing a background of this. Why would you be considered a disadvantaged applicant? And then you have family situation for U.S. applicants. So like talking about governmental assistance, and have I had paid employment prior to age 18, which I did. I worked when I was 16 in community college. Were you able to contribute to the overall family income? Also childhood residency. And they have a description of, like, you have an option to explain the situation, like, of your childhood residency. So, like, for me, I was moving around. Like, I wasn't really in a suburban or rural area. I moved a lot throughout my childhood. I just explained that I moved around and where I lived to explain my residency. High school situation. If there were, if you went to a high school where there was a low percentage of graduation, like the graduation rate was low, or did you go to a high school in which a low percentage of people went to college? So then you can actually select your school and the state and the county in which you went to school in. I was homeschooled, so it was a little different for me. And then you also have an area in which you can put if you have relatives in dentistry. You have a place to put your parent and guardian information. And then your race and ethnicity. And then there's an other information section. And that's where you put your dent pin if you don't already have a dent pin, which you should if you've taken the DAT. If not, then I would create one as soon as possible because you're going to need it to take your DAT anyway. And then you have a place to put your first language, second language, and in any other languages that you have. And then you have a place to put your proficiency level of that language. I speak both Spanish and English. English is my first language, Spanish is my second language. And then you have a place to put your military status if you have any. I'm not in the military, so this was not applicable to me. And then this is part of like legal status. I saw someone post on the Facebook DAT Bootcamp website about having a misdemeanor and stuff like that. This is when you would put that you have a felony or anything like that, misdemeanor. And this, like, they will do a background check on you anyway, prior to matriculation for dental school. So I wouldn't lie on any of this because they will find out anyway. There's also a place in this part to have a COVID-19 impact statement. And this is where you have 2,500 characters to write about how COVID has impacted you academically, professionally, or personally. And they have a couple of prompts here, and you have a chance to speak about it. I think for most of these, I'm going to try to just block out what I have written because they are personal, and I don't think that my statements are really going to be of much help. All I'm going to say, make sure that you are careful with your wording and grammar here, because the way that you word these parts of the sections, like I've heard previously that the way that you write in not only just your personal statement, because your personal statement is like heavily edited, but these statements are not as, like, some people don't really think of them as needing to worry as much about the editing or the grammar or anything like that on these particular parts, but they are just as important in your application as your personal statement. So I definitely edit it and reword it and make sure that it's written properly for this part of the application. And if your education has ever been interrupted because of COVID-19, they have that now. Military service interruption from, or has your education ever been impacted by military service? Or if you've ever previously applied to dental school. So say you're a reapplicant, this is also where you would say that you're a reapplicant. They have a manual dexterity portion, and this is when you're going to talk about your manual dexterity. You have 600 characters to write about this. Don't use bullet points for this one, or don't like list them. Write it in a paragraph format, and then just kind of, I guess, list what activities that you have, or activities that you've done that will show manual dexterity. This is also where you can put if you were a first generation college student or not. And then that's on personal information. So after that, you have a part where you have your academic history. So this is where you would send your transcripts into, and this is where they should show up on your application. You will actually have to manually put in all of your classes. So make sure to set aside a good amount of time to do this, because you have to put in every single class, every single grade that you've taken or that show up on your transcripts. You have to manually put them in addition to submitting your transcripts to begin with. So make sure that you set aside a good amount of time to put in all of your classes, because it's going to take a long time. It took me a long time to do it. And then any standardized tests, so this would be your DAT. So your DAT should show up in this area. Okay, so after academic history, you have your supporting information. So this is where you submit your letters of recommendation. You can submit these directly from Interfolio. I have talked about Interfolio already. I definitely recommend using Interfolio if you haven't already, because it'll make this part of the application so much easier. All you have to do is create an evaluation request and then put in the information that Interfolio has, and then it will use that information from Interfolio to submit your letter of recommendation. This section of the application is where you put in your experiences. So for me, I put research and any of the pre-dental days that I've done, or any of the conferences that I went to in regards to dental. And then I also put employment. So I actually even put like working at Target, because that also has relevance in the terms of interacting with the public and doing customer service, which I thought was important. And then I also did any of my volunteer experiences, any shadowing, stuff like that. One thing that this also has is that you can star your top experiences, your most important experiences, and I would do that especially if you have more than 6 experiences. The next part is achievement. So this is where you would add if you had any awards or scholarships that you've been awarded. For both the experiences section and the achievement section, for every entry that you put, you need to be able to write a description. So if you want to like set this up before applying, I would have like an Excel sheet or a Word document on Word that has a description of each event or each entry that you put. So like if I was to write about my experience at Target, I would have a description of what I did there, or a description of what I did shadowing, or a description of the award that I received. So definitely have that, like, if you want to do this prior to applying, I would definitely set that up. Licenses are if you have any, like, if you have any licenses that are relevant to the healthcare field. I didn't have anything for the licenses section because I don't have any licenses. So I'm not sure about the process of submitting them because I didn't have any. And then this is also where you put your personal statement. So your personal statement, you have 4,500 characters. This includes spaces. It will not let you, or you will be able to submit them in like paragraph format. It's not going to merge them all together. So you can do that. I would have it, of course, as most people do, in a different document, and then copy and paste it, and then reread it to make sure that it is formatted and written the same way as where you pasted it from. And then the last part is program materials. So all the schools that you will have selected will show up here, and then each school, this is where schools have like an initial secondary application, because some schools will actually send you another secondary application, but initially some schools will have specific requirements, so you'll be able to go there and fill out any questions or documents that they want, or are an extra requirement for the schools. This is also where you select your prerequisites that apply to that school. So this is where entering all of them manually, this is where entering all of your classes manually will matter, because you'll have to select the classes that you put in that fulfill their requirements. And then once you have all of those filled out, then you won't be able to fill out the program materials section until after you add programs. So you'll add all the programs. You can search the school by, you can search for the school or filter through the schools, and just click the little plus button right here that adds it to your application, and then you'll be able to fill out the program materials portion. Once you are done with all of your application, you'll be able to click submit application, and this will show you how many applications that you have for submission, and make sure that you have and this will show you all the schools that you have selected, and if you filled out all of the requirements for all the schools. This will be like your program materials portion. But once you're done, there's a button, and you can click submit all, and it will bring you to payment and stuff like that. If you have a fee waiver, and I will repeat because I messed this one up. If you have a fee waiver, you need to submit your application all at once, like all of your schools. You cannot submit individual schools. Like, what I mean by this is you can't apply to one school at a time. You need to click the submit all section, and use your fee waiver for this. So when you open up your schools, like when you open up this list, you will be able to select, or you will be able to click submit for that specific school. Now, don't do this. Make sure you click submit all, and then so if you click submit for the individual schools, don't submit individually. You will waive the rest of your schools that you apply to, so you only get coverage for one of the schools if you submit individually. You need to go over here and click submit all, and then pay the difference for the schools, or only have on your application those 3 schools before when you submit, because if you do them individually, you will not get coverage for all of the schools. You only get coverage for one. So make sure you submit it all together so that if you use your fee assistance program, you will get them all paid for. I messed this one up, so don't do that. After you submit everything, after you finish submission with all of your schools, it will show your status of your transcripts, make sure they're in, your evaluations, your letters of recommendation, those will be submitted here, and then your standardized test, which would be your DAT or Casper. And then it will show all of your programs here, and this I wouldn't worry too much about because sometimes AADSAS does not update this as well, and the statuses are very odd. Like some schools will show like it will not, or still say like waiting on application, and they will already sent you an interview. So don't worry too much about this. Like, don't worry about what it says is your status here. I saw so many people on Student Doctor Network kind of freaking out about their status changing, or that it says that it's been invited for interview but hasn't updated, that kind of thing. The only time where this matters is if it said like, that they sent you an offer, that you've been accepted. This is where it will matter before they maybe emailed you. But if it says that you've been offered, like you've been accepted into the dental school, it will show it here, even maybe before you've received an email. So don't worry too much about your status here because ultimately it doesn't really matter. Like right here, it'll say received and waiting additional information. They've already sent me an email about this, but this has not been updated. I needed to submit, so like this doesn't really, it doesn't make a difference. But as you can see, after you've accepted a dental school, it will show offer accepted. So that's why it says it right here about Maryland, because I've accepted my offer to Maryland. As you can see, I applied to I applied to 6 schools. I'll make a separate video about why I applied to 6 schools and what the application cycle is like and interviews. But this video is getting kind of long, and I will probably talk about this at a later video. But if you have any questions about anything, please send me a DM on Instagram or leave a comment below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I don't tend to look at my YouTube comments as often because I don't get notified for all the comments that I receive sometimes, so I have to go and actually just check the video. But for Instagram, I do always reply. I can also leave my email below if you want to email me about any of this. I'll also probably make another video about me reading my personal statement because I know a couple people have been interested in that. And I actually, when I was looking for personal statement examples, I would watch a couple videos about people reading their personal statement. So that was super helpful for me because I didn't, especially when I had no idea where to start. But anyway, thanks for joining me today. And hopefully this helped a bit. And I will see you guys next video. Bye.